Hey guys, I'm Jacob Broussard. Today we're doing a knockoff video on Tom Ritchie for my US AP History class at San Marino High School. And our topic today is going to be the Barbary Wars. So the Barbary Wars are the one of those wars where people died but no one really cares about. And other wars like this would be like when we genocided people in the Philippines. And we're going to talk about it because despite its relative lack of popularity in our psyche as Americans, I still think it's quite notable for the way it describes how America changes. So first, we're really going to examine what actually happened in this war. So for starters, the combatants in this war were the United States of America, obviously, and the Barbary States. Now, the Barbary States existed in what is presently modern North Africa. So they included Algeria, Tripoli, Morocco, and about that area of the world. Now, the states themselves aren't actually the important part. The important part is that they were sponsoring pirates to go out and steal ships and people to be sold as slaves from nations who do not pay them money. So pretty much they were doing a massive state-sponsored extortion where they'd pay a defense fee in turn for not getting attacked by them. And you would think that big, powerful nations at the time, like Britain or France, would go and delete these people off the map, but they were too busy fighting each other, and they were too rich, so they didn't really care about the tribute. It wasn't that much. But America, for the other hand, when it lost its tribute by becoming independent, so Britain no longer paid for its tribute, well, then America did not have enough money to really pay for this. And at one time during the Jefferson administration, 1/6 of our budget was being paid towards the Tripoli states. Now, I know this doesn't sound like that much considering my audience is most likely going to be Americans because we already pay that much or more on our military. But back then, it was actually a lot of money. Yeah. So we had to do something, and Jefferson wanted to do something. So he even made the United States Navy for this purpose, and he started building a few ships. And then we took these new ships and we went to Tripoli. So Tripoli really started this conflict because they were kind of the loser state of the Barbary states, and they found out that they're being paid less tribute than their neighbors like Morocco, and they wanted their fair share. But Jefferson's like, oh no, I already paid too much money to this state and to states as a whole, I can't afford it. So he said no, and then they started stealing our ships again. So we sent our ships there, and Congress didn't really approve this war, but they supported it. But this is kind of the themes of many wars that the U.S. has done, especially in recent memory. But that's besides the point. So pretty much we went to Tripoli and we hooked up with the Swedish there, and we started bombarding the harbor at Tripoli in their capital. And at first, this didn't work. The Swedish left because they got bored, and we just stayed there, and nothing really changed. But eventually, we hired a bunch of Egyptians, and they eventually took the city, and we ended the conflict with Tripoli. But one of the disappointing parts of this conflict, it never really ended until colonialism came and these countries were colonized, because there's still the other barbary states to contend with. And over the series of years, we would actually keep fighting these states. And we'd even join other nations. So the Barbary Wars really were the start of US's fondness for coalitions in terms of dealing with external threats. And we can see that even today with the coalition we use to like invade Afghanistan or to have the first Gulf War. So let's get back to the war. In 1812, during the War of 1812, when we were fighting the British, we took a break from this conflict because we got a little busy, and then we came back to it. And another notable aspect of this war is when we finally had the truce with Tripoli, we signed the first treaty ever, international treaty, which is a very big moment in our history. And most of the treaty is quite boring, but Article 11 is quite important because it just reaffirms that the United States government is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. And we said that because the Muslims there were like, yo, this is not fair. You're just like doing this because we're Muslim. But then we're like, no, it's in our constitution. We're actually not. And so if anyone today says the United States is a Christian nation, you can just look at Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli to see that the framers of the Constitution, yes, Jefferson himself, the guy who wrote the thing, said that we are no shape or no way a Christian state. Okay, and now let's go on to why this war is like largely forgotten about. It's not even taught in the U.S. history textbook for AP U.S. history. It gets like 3 sentences and 0 key concepts, which are quite helpful in doing this project, by the way, because those things aren't very useful. That's besides the point again. So we're going to talk about its significance. And first, we have to categorize this war because it really falls into the C tier of wars. So I like to define United States wars as a ABC tier list, where A tier wars are the Civil War, the World War II, and then the Revolution. So these wars are just talked about ad nauseum. Everyone knows something, and there's always this one annoying history buff in this class who knows every little thing about the war, except its significance, and likes to like say his country's better than yours pretty much. Now in B tier, we have anything that you learned in history class or that's pretty recent, but you don't really care about. So this would be like fighting in Afghanistan, any recent intervention in the Middle East, the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, and on the top of that, it's probably Vietnam, because it's still quite fresh in our psyche, but it's not like those #1 wars when you think about U.S. conflicts. And then at C tier, we finally hit the wars where the US either committed genocide or they're so boring that we kind of forget about it, or it's the rest of our colonial activity. So the Spanish-American War, especially in the Philippines, the Banana Wars, and plenty of these unnamed wars. Also, the Quasi-War falls into this camp, which was occurring around the same time as the Barbary Wars. And that's pretty much when we fought France over trade, but it's so boring and unglamorous that we pretty much forget about them. But I still think these wars are actually very important in understanding our nation's history and even our nation's presence. Because although they don't really have a clear narrative, they still provide some good learning opportunities. So take instance for the Barbary Wars, where it was really the first time the United States was practicing this European style of pseudo-imperialism, where we'd pretty much assert our influence and our will on states across the world if it fit our economic interests. So before this, America was really a fledgling state, and we'd only fought these just wars against bigger powers, but finally we were kicking on people even weaker than us. And this really is instance of like the Barbary Wars. Say for Tripoli, they're unable to actually fight the bombardment, and their ships by themselves were weaker than ours, but they still were able to operate and be a thorn in our side, and this is why we had to take them out. And this really plays into the moral conflict of, is it right to intervene and attack nation soil even though they've never attacked us physically? And I can't really answer that, but we can clearly see that the United States really said that it was moral because we've had plenty of other conflicts like this in the future. And I think the really main reason why this war is forgotten is because it really doesn't provide a good narrative. Because you see, history is all about really rationalizing past experiences to make them more compact so we can understand and even relate with these people. When there's no grand storyline or even proper ending and beginning, it's hard to really care about these things that happened long ago. And I think that's dangerous sometimes because some of the most important lessons aren't glamorous. They're just more nitty and gritty. And if we can really learn from that, we can better understand where our nation is at now and how we got there. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. And I really hope you enjoyed this video.